Hi. 2017, like every other year, was a little bit weird. Despite that, video games are pretty great, and what's also pretty great is 2017's video games. I completely forgot where I was going with this. So, to close off 2017, welcome to my little rundown of new releases that I played this year and my general thoughts, be it from playing to completion or dipping a toe for a few hours. I'd like to greatly emphasize that this is not a Game of the Year listing, simply because I haven't played every new release that I wanted to play. No, if I had to call it something, it's rather a compilation of mini reviews all bundled into one. That doesn't mean these games won't get reviews at a later date, but I thought it'd be fun and that's justification enough for me, so expect some outliers like ports, remakes, or the occasional below average game here and there. If it released in 2017 in some way, shape or form, it's getting talked about. Additionally, these games will not be displayed in any particular order, so let's get started. Firstly, to get an extremely obvious entry out of the way, we have Hatsune Miku Project Diva Future Tone, a 2017 localization of a 2016 PS4 port of a 2014 upgrade of a 2010 arcade machine. When it comes to my favourite rhythm games, Project Diva is pretty high up on that list, and is the sole reason I ended up being a huge Vocaloid nerd. F second, I'm even one of the oddballs that kinda liked X, and it along with Future Tone were the sole reasons I ended up picking up a PS4. I do plan on covering the series at some point so I can pick each entry apart in detail, and I wouldn't say Future Tone is my favourite entry out of all of them, but it's still the same fun, addictive Diva gameplay in wonderful 60 FPS, and a surprising value for money when it comes to how many songs a single expansion pack gives you. Highly recommend if you need a time sink to dust off the PS4, even if it means losing all of your dignity, and by the way, Mako is best girl, just saying. Next up, we have Zelda Breath of the Wild. I uploaded a video about its hang glider recently, but as for the rest of the game, it was an immensely fun ride. Despite not having any love for the Zelda series or even that much love of open world action games, Breath of the Wild, while being far from a perfect 10, was still hard to put down. It's been in development for quite a period of time, as it was originally intended as a Wii U exclusive, but as a Switch launch title, it feels right at home in stress testing the hardware to what I can only assume is its limit. It plays well, it's fun to explore, and the game is extremely rewarding to play. Even if you only have a Wii U, even if you're not into the Zelda franchise, it wouldn't be a bad idea to pick this up and hug some mountains. Heading into the narrative space, we have What Remains of Edith Finch. If you've watched my content long enough, you know that I have fond memories playing the unfinished Swan, and ever since it was announced in late 2014 that its developers, Giant Sparrow, were working on a new game titled What Remains of Edith Finch, you bet your ass I waited and waited until I could buy it on launch. I can't say I'm a huge fan of narrative-driven games, and in comparison to Swan, Edith Finch is far more minimal gameplay-wise, but the environmental storytelling is just astounding. Exploring the Finch house will never get dull for me, and the stories of each family member are so distinct to one another that it feels like you're playing a completely different game sometimes. While extremely difficult to recommend at its full £15 price tag, Finch is a refreshing take on the walking simulator that you should at the very least keep on your radar. But without spoiling anything, I can say that your playthrough of Finch will be ever so slightly enriched if you play Swan beforehand, so keep that in mind. I wasn't in tears or anything. From a strong start with 3 great entries, we go to my first disappointment of the year with Layton's Mystery Journey, Katrielle, and the Millionaire's Conspiracy. I always find it difficult to consider myself a fan of the Professor Layton series. The first 3 games, especially Pandora's Box, are must-owns for the Nintendo DS, and Eternal Diva was surprisingly decent for a film based on a game IP. But not only did the prequels completely throw out any love I had for the franchise, but this thing has decided to dance on the grave the prequels left behind. If we were to cast aside any over-exaggeration, the Layton prequel trilogy was fine, it was acceptable, it just didn't hold a candle to any previous installments. But Millionaire's Conspiracy is the first entry in the entire series that I would consider a legitimately bad game, and I played Layton Brothers' Mystery Room. The plot is humdrum, with the announcement trailer literally spoiling every single plot twist. The presentation is stale because you're back in London with none of the pop from more creative locations like Monte d'Or or Full Sense. The puzzles are far too easy and sometimes just poorly designed, and I feel like neither newcomers nor longtime fans will find anything to enjoy from Catrielle's debut. In fact, if we're being blunt here, I still haven't finished the game and stopped at the 8-hour mark because I was so fed up at how uninteresting it was. You know the only other Layton entry that's done that? Miracle Mask. Now, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a game that needs no explanation. It's the Switch port of the Wii U game bundled with all of the DLC and some extra fluff, and while quite underwhelming when described as so, it's pretty high up for me when it comes to recommending Switch games to new buyers. I'm a fairly intermediate player of Mario Kart, starting with Double Dash and playing excessive amounts of Mario Kart Wii, and the years of belittling by my siblings was the drive I needed to be absolutely obsessed with getting better at this series. If you've played the DLC on the original game, Deluxe doesn't have a whole lot to introduce to you, but that doesn't make it any less addictive, especially now that multiplayer is way more accessible by using singular Switch Joy-Cons, and the implementation of smart steering was done perfectly for less experienced family and friends to join in on the fun. All I'd really say in terms of complaints is I would have loved a ranked competitive mode for online, but considering this is a port and not a new iteration, I think it's only a matter of time. Mario Kart continues to be a fantastic time for me, and this Deluxe port is worth the pennies. Green Shy Guy is best boy. Sticking with the Switch, Splatoon 2 is an entry on this list that I had to rewrite the more I played it. As a numbered sequel, it is the definition of lackluster, with questionable lobbying, dull single player, and being very malnourished in content and stuff to do. This game will not change your mind if you weren't a fan of Splatoon 1, and I feel like it could have easily been Splatoon Deluxe. However, as a new iteration for returning players, Splatoon 2 provided nearly everything I wanted in terms of a sequel that refines the competitive Splatoon formula. Yeah, it still has the map rotation, and yeah, you can kiss Team Comp goodbye when you're solo queuing, but all of the tiny reworks and quality of life changes made to the game's foundation are what sells it to me, let alone the fact that I'm playing it on a portable system. Special abilities have been swapped out to be less cheap and easier to counter, ranked has been completely reworked for a more balanced experience, and overall 2 feels so much less frustrating to play compared to 1. In Splatoon 1, I stayed far away from ranked battles because the mode was poorly designed and dragged down by the game's smaller issues, but now I've started on 2, I'm binging the mode like crazy and trying my hardest to climb to the top. It's questionable as a sequel. It really is. But Splatoon 2 provides enough that returning players will appreciate the changes. Changes being the fantastic new squid waifus, among other things. I can't decide which one is best girl because, quite frankly, they're equally precious. Shifting into the sort of obscure, we have Doki Doki Literature Club, a game that I'm not going to spend too much time on, but simply say this. It's a dating sim visual novel that you can download for free on Steam and beat in the space of 1 or 2 hours. That's it. I don't wish to say anything more, I just want you to trust me and try this game out the moment you have spare time. I'm not saying it's innovative, I'm not saying it's exceptional, but even if the game genre does not appeal to you in the slightest, you owe it to yourself to try Doki Doki Literature Club. It's one of the most memorable experiences I've had this year, and it will continue to stay in my head for years to come. Sayori is best girl.
Yeah, about that. I think you said Yuri wrong.
Now you fucking listen here, mister, I will fight you on this.
Right. So, can I at least plug my video on the game while I'm here?
Fine. Right, enough of that. Cuphead, also known colloquially as Dark Souls, is a game that I had zero interest in prior to its launch. It looked to me like a game that was all flair and no substance, like it had a pretty art style and that was about it. I will say beforehand that I'm still in the first area as I've only recently picked it up during the Game Awards Steam sale, but from the short time I've spent with Cuphead, it's a delightfully made platformer underneath the glamour of its art style. The controls are tight and acrobatic, the bosses have been a joy, and the general chaos of it all, from the soundtrack to the amount of things going on screen at once, is such an exhilarating ride. What sells me the most on Cuphead is how it handles its difficulty. The game is fast-paced, and it does not use failure as an opportunity to be a pain in the arse. When you die, it's a slap on the wrist more than anything, so you can charge back into the meat of the game head on, which I love, and I can see myself getting addicted to this game till the very end. Not to mention, from my playtime so far, the power-ups have been well designed to not feel like upgrades, but rather changes in playstyles. My current favourite shot, the Chaser, does not require me to aim, but as a trade-off does minuscule damage. Combine that with the Smoke Bomb where I can dash without taking damage, but it means I can't tell where I land, and the game's accommodated me with a playstyle that's less about focusing in on the boss, but rather outliving it and focusing on my platforming at the cost of encounters going on for much longer. Cuphead currently has a hold on me that very few games have, and if the game continues to be as fantastic as my first 2 hours with it, you bet your ass it's worth the time and money. Look at this cute little onion boss. Never before have I wanted to hug an onion and tell him that everything was going to be okay. So, Joe, you got your Nintendo Switch in November, late into the year. So why the hell did you buy a digital copy of 1-2 Switch at full price? Well, it's simple really. I was insanely tired and lost control of my life, buying it from the eShop at 3 in the morning. But despite that, I was honestly interested in seeing what this tech demo was like and how it stacked up compared to previous Nintendo Party launch games. And while I feel like previous titles felt like complete games with lots to offer, 1-2 Switch feels like the nucleus of a great idea that Nintendo simply turned into table scraps. The concept of motion control minigames with a focus on looking away from the console gives this idea of competitive intimacy and engaging with your opponent, but the games in of themselves are basic and separated through a clunky UI where you play one game after the other with no sense of competition or urgency. Nintendo Land is a near perfect launch title for the Wii U, it really fucking is, and I would have recommended it no matter the price and no matter the point in the Wii U's life cycle. But 1-2 Switch feels like a work in progress that could have easily been used for something like WarioWare or a Mario Party game. I'll continue to play this to show newcomers the occasional good minigames like Sneaky Dice and Quick Draw, but I have better games to introduce the Switch with, like Mario Kart. It's a great time waster if you want more multiplayer games for your Switch, but it feels like a very pointless game. I'd only recommend getting it for like a physical copy for a tenner pre-owned. It's just not worth it.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Stop. Turn around.
So, I couldn't stop myself from talking about this, could I? Yes, I'm going to pester you for the millionth time about voice. An exceptional cheaty entry considering the game did in fact come out last year on iOS and Android, while this year marks the release of it being ported to Nintendo Switch. But I'm not just talking about the game itself, hear me out. Rayark Games is an indie developer that has a lot of shortcomings but is easily one of my favourite developers for their exceptional rhythm games. Citus is an exhilarating and flashy game filled to the brim with content. Demo, for its soundtrack, narrative and satisfying gameplay, is a close contender for my favourite game of all time. And then we have Voice, which has the potential to take the throne I placed Demo on for all these years. Voice, not Voez, as the Philistines say it.
Voez.
Just get it right, you dickheads, it's not that hard.
Is your average falling note rhythm game. And a lot of facets such as its poorly translated diary entries, aimless plot, and hard to sell free-to-play model on mobile would make anyone understandably brush it off as nothing special. But I can't get enough of this game. From its amazing visual feedback and charts, diverse soundtrack, piles of content, and fantastic difficulty curve, it's become my go-to rhythm game, and just like Citus and Demo, I've piled probably hundreds of hours into it. So why do I place the Switch version on such a pedestal despite mostly playing the game on my tablet? Simply because the release of this port was such an interesting discussion piece in the industry this year. Because if Voice sounds familiar to you, you might know it as that one mobile port on Switch that requires handheld mode to be playable. People were talking about this game, not just in of itself, but it raised so much to talk about regarding the versatile nature of the Switch hardware, its ease of porting for developers, and it filled me with glee knowing this game finally put Rayark on the map. As Voice has now surpassed 40k downloads on Switch alone, and has a Japan-exclusive physical copy coming next January with TV mode support. That I may or may not have imported. Strange Goo is sponsored by PlayAsia, everyone. I just had to bring this game up on the listing. And be it through the free-to-play mobile version or trying out the Switch demo, I implore you to play what is now one of my favourite games of all time. But alas, ladies and gentlemen, I need to meet my pissing everyone off quota because I finally got around to Super Mario Odyssey and... Okay, chill out! Yeah, Odyssey, as much as it pains me to say it, joins my list of disappointments this year, as I honestly don't get the hype surrounding the game. It's polished and well made, don't get me wrong, with pretty visuals and plenty of side content, and I was definitely excited for it leading up to its release. But it's just not fun to play, it's not challenging, it feels very unrewarding, the controls are slippery, the kingdoms are boring to wander around, I'm not encouraged to get creative with the game's many variants of platforming abilities, and I'm given zero incentive to want to get more power moons than required to beat the game. Like, okay, it's a casual game for all audiences, but I'm not asking for Dark Souls here, I'm not even asking for Cuphead. I just wanted the game to capitalize on the ideas it gave instead of giving up and meeting me halfway. I am not in any way saying you're not allowed to like and enjoy this game, please do, but for me it honestly feels like Nintendo promising an ocean and giving me a paddling pool. I think the game's mediocre compared to the one other 3D Mario I've played, and it was not worth the price I paid, nor the time I spent by any means. And there we have it, the games I've played this year and my thoughts on them, with honourable mentions going to Robo Recall, Crash Insane Trilogy, and the Switch port for Demo. But we are far from done. Just stick with me for a few more minutes because, as I said, I didn't get the chance to play every little thing that I wanted to this year. So, here are my 2017 rollovers, games that I haven't tried yet but definitely plan on playing at some point in the future, and explaining why exactly I'm so desperate to play them. Starting off, Persona 5. I am so sorry that I can't play you yet.
You never see it coming. You say that my mind is too fast for eyes. You're done.
I'm a relatively new fan of Persona. A lot of my friends are Persona nerds, and while I knew the series from reputation for a while, I didn't know in depth what SMT and Persona were until I watched said nerd friends play P5 the week it came out. Very rarely do I play JRPGs because for the longest time the genre wasn't my cup of tea, and I was even hesitant at times to call JRPGs games, what with their slower pace, large focus on narrative, and because I have a god-awful attention span. So would you believe my fucking surprise when I emulated Persona 3 Fez over the course of the year and realised, oh mother of god, this game is so fucking good! But lordy, it's all so long. I'm 60 hours in on the top block of Tartarus, so I still have a way to go, and Junpei is best boy, by the way. That's not even me saying it, that's just science. I plan on covering P3 on this channel once I've finished it and I've collected my thoughts, and I plan on getting to P4 afterwards, so it's gonna be a while until I eventually get round to P5, but I'm excited. It looks flashy, beautiful, has the same Persona gameplay I fell in love with, and Ryuji looks like a good boy that I just want to cuddle and tell him he's doing great, so consider me a new passenger of the Persona thirst train with waifus and husbandos aplenty.
Oh, am I mistaken? I thought I heard something about delicious pancakes.
And yes, I know P3 and 5 dancing exists, and I am beyond hype for that game too. Just look at Junpei. You ever see something so beautiful you just break down into tears? Oh Jesus Christ, I think I need a glass of water. Continuing on with my list of games to apologise to, I haven't played Nier Automata yet. For some backstory, I have not played a single game directed by Yoko Taro, so I'm unsure of what to expect. But what drew me to playing the demo on PS4 was word of mouth and noticing it was developed by Platinum Games, the goddamn Bayonetta people, so I downloaded it in a heartbeat and had a ton of fun. 2B is a joy to control, the combat is satisfying, the shifting camera perspectives were really well done, and it ain't a Platinum game without ridiculous boss fights. And it also has good boys in it. It has all of the good boys. Oh my god, I want to just marry 9S. Unfortunately, releasing early into the year meant that I was extremely close to forgetting about Automata, as I was already bogged down by the other games I was playing at the time, and by other games I just mean Future Tone, but that's not the game's fault. And once I freed up my backlog, I can't wait for my first dive into Yoko Taro's bizarre, rounded head. Cheating again with the remasters, now that the Joe of 2017 is more open to playing JRPGs and actually has some fucking patience, I want to at some point get started on the Kingdom Hearts series, with Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix. Jesus Christ, Square, you don't let up with the names, do you? Kingdom Hearts is a series I knew very little about during childhood, seeing ads for the game on TV and thinking, wait, why is that anime boy with Mickey Mouse? But now that I've actually looked into this series, god damn, it looks like fun. An entertaining hack and slash romp with the depth provided by its JRPG elements, and a story that looks incredibly dumb, but it at least makes an effort to be detailed and investing. Now, Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix to me is how you do a remaster collection properly. You mean to tell me that for £25 I can play nearly every vital entry in the series, in intended order, in 60 FPS to prep me for when Kingdom Hearts 3 eventually comes out? And I say nearly every entry because there's also Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, and Jesus Christ, please stop! But despite that, sign me up. This looks like a great deal to get into the series, and it looks genuinely fun, and yes, the plot is the butt of jokes for being dumb and confusing, but that's from an outsider's perspective, and this collection looks like it has just enough to ease anyone into the series. It could smash my expectations on the rocks, it could lead to me despising it, but regardless of if I actually like the games in question, it's still a fantastically made collection from the value for money standpoint, and if it has me hooked by the first entry, this remastered collection could lead to me becoming a fan of the series in no time. Are you happy now, Pat?
略してピチピチスプラッシュ
Hey, stop! Why? I just don't get it. I always catch you fuckers watching this sick shit. This is sickening.
Now, Okay, so I have Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash on my backlog. I've never played a Senran Kagura game, and I know this is a spin-off, but the third-person shooter concept with water guns sounds insanely fun to me. I'm currently just waiting for the inevitable PC port because I don't want to use a controller, and I don't want to pay for PlayStation Plus. I'm a simple man, okay? But now that that's out the way, Resident Evil 7 looks bloody awesome in a literal sense. To keep you up to speed on my experience with the series, I honestly think that Resident Evil 1 and 2 on PS1 are brilliant games that I see not just as survival horrors, but also really fun adventure games with interesting locales to explore. This isn't even nostalgia talking, I only played the first two games about 2 or 3 years ago. But Resi 4... well, I will admit I haven't given the game the time of day, as the furthest point I got was probably those sewers with the invisible enemies, but the changing gameplay structure just wasn't my thing. It feels like they downplayed a lot of what made the first few games great, and then emphasized what made the first few games not so great. It's all down to personal preference, and the game is not bad by any means, it's just and I cannot be asked to finish it, be it on PS2, PC, or Wii. Now, Resi 7, I'm really intrigued about. Back into the labyrinth of a mansion with little to fend for ourselves as we plate spin with a bunch of inventory items. Oh boy, I've been waiting for this time to come. One of the main praises I've heard about this game was the series going back to its roots, as it were, and while I haven't touched 5 or 6 yet, so I don't know how bad things get, I will admittedly take that as a selling point, and considering the games have plenty of time to sit and the hype and popularity hasn't exactly died down, I'm willing to believe that the game is decent, and I hope to God that when I play it that the Baker family are gentle when they're tearing me a new one. And then finally, I swear I'm ending this shit now, we have the little cherry on top, the honourable rollover mentions, because I can't buy video games that often. The games that I haven't played yet, but definitely plan on getting around to being Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, Sonic Mania, Gravity Rush 2, I actually need to play the first game, South Park The Fractured But Whole, Fire Emblem Heroes, Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle, Outlast 2, Tekken 7, Miitopia, ARMS, A Hat in Time, Life is Strange Before the Storm,
2 hours later.
and like the other half of early access game Final Fantasy 15. So, thank you very much for sitting with me as we recount the lovely jubbly games of 2017. Here's to a good industry in 2018, eh? Well, of course it will be amazing. I mean, Persona dancing, hello? Oh, Jesus, mother of God, it looks beautiful. I opened 2 gifts today and they were my eyes. Have a good 2018.